Hello and welcome. I'm Asuma Katauka and you're watching the Primetime Asia. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. China has issued a bold warning to the United States ahead of the Trump-Xi meeting. Foreign Minister Wang Yi has declared that a multipolar world is coming. He has also stated that the United States is politicizing the trade. Bangladesh's interim head Mohammad has stoked fresh controversy after he has gifted a distorted map showing India's northeast as part of Bangladesh to Pakistan's Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee chairperson. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer will meet with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in Ankara to discuss the sale of 40 Eurofighter Typhoon jets, including a plan for Turkey to receive 12 used jets from Qatar and Oman. The deal backed by Eurofighter consortium members Britain, Germany, Italy, and Spain. US President Donald Trump has stated that he expects the United States and China to come away with a deal as he prepares to meet President Xi Jinping in South Korea this week. Speaking aboard Air Force One, Trump has said that he has a lot of respect for President Xi as he continues his Asia tour. After US slammed Russia on the test of Burevestnik missile, Russia has countered by saying it notified US in advance. Kremlin has also stated that it is guided by their own national interests and that there is nothing to strain relations with Washington. French police have arrested 2 suspects linked to the 102 million Louvre jewel heist, one of whom was about to flee to Algeria, according to Paris prosecutors. However, the Paris prosecutor has condemned the leak of the arrests, warning it could hinder the work of over 100 investigators searching for the stolen crown jewels, which remain missing. The UN had called for an immediate ceasefire in El Fasher, warning that civilians are cut off from food, healthcare, and safe escape routes as fighting intensifies. Aid agencies say targeted attacks on hospitals and humanitarian workers are deepening the crisis. Brazil's President Lula da Silva has said that US President Donald Trump has assured him a trade agreement that can be reached to ease punitive tariffs. Lula spoke after meeting Trump on the sidelines of a Southeast Asian summit. Now we start with China. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi has warned that a multipolar world is on the rise, signaling a subtle challenge to the United States. Wang has urged countries to avoid politicizing trade and economic issues and to steer clear of tariffs and trade wars. He has stressed the importance of upholding global rules and multilateral agreements. He has also reflected on China's stance on bullying through power. Let's listen into what Wang Yi, the Chinese foreign minister, has said.
退群毁约，热衷编织阵营化小圈子，使多边主义遭受前所未有的挑战。但是，历史潮流无法逆转，多极世界正在到来。如果迷信实力至上，热衷强权霸凌，只会把世界推向弱肉强食的丛林，只会动摇国际体系和规则的根基。我们呼吁停止将经贸问题政治化，停止人为割裂全球市场，停止动辄挑起。
These comments from Wang Yi come ahead of a key meeting between US President Donald Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping later this week in South Korea. Trump is currently on an Asia tour with talks focused on easing tensions over tariffs and trade disputes. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and China's Vice Premier He Lifeng have already held 2 days of discussions. Now for this discussion, we welcome Andrew K.P. Long. He's a China strategist, joins us live from Hong Kong. Thank you very much, Andrew, for joining us again. Good to see you. Andrew, how does China's call for a multipolar world challenge the previously U.S.-led global order, or in U.S.'s point of view, still the U.S.-led global order?
Well, first of all, I'm joining you from Hong Kong, okay? Anyway, the reference to the multipolar world must be understood as this different from some people say that, okay, after the Second World War, or even in recent years, you have the United States, you have Russia, you have Europe. Well, that's the multipolar world. No, this is not the same kind of multipolar scenario Foreign Minister Wang Yi was referring to. He's referring to the world where the smaller countries and medium-sized countries can still play a very important role and are able to defend their own interests, as happening increasingly now. You can see that the rise of the Global South, together with the developing economies, the emerging economies. In fact, according to the IMF, in 2023, I think, the combined GDP of the emerging economies and the developing countries account for something like 58% of the world's global GDP. And of course, if we're talking about the BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South America, South Africa, together with the new members of the BRICS, they are bigger than the G7. So the sands are shifting, the power is shifting. Not that they're pitching, making the Global South predominant. By no means. They're still developing countries. But collectively, as a whole, they are able to pull their weight. And then lends itself to a more multipolar, more fairer world, a more inclusive world, where people can trade with another. For example, if you go buy and sell things, the buyer gets some benefit, the seller gets some benefit. It's not a zero-sum game. That's the world I think most countries would like to live in, rather than rules of the jungle, and the strong always have their say, and the weak have to bear the consequences. So that's what former Foreign Minister Wang Yi is referring to.
And what role do multilateral agreements play in managing tensions between major economic powers like U.S., China, and what can we expect from the upcoming meeting between President Trump and Xi?
Well, the lower level ministers or the trade minister and various other negotiators have already laid the groundwork for a positive outcome. In other words, coming to some sort of accommodation on key matters that matters to President Trump and key matters that matters to China, to President Xi. What happened, what matters to President Trump is, of course, immediately the soybeans. The soybeans, of course, affect the Republican Party's main supporters in those states which produce, rely on agricultural exports. These are President Trump's main supporting constituent states. And then as China has buying all the soybeans because of the trade war from Brazil, from Russia, this is hurting Trump's constituencies. And but of course, it's relatively easier for China to accommodate that. So I think that in this preliminary framework agreement, China's agreed to buy, revert back to the United States for purchase soybeans And of course, as far as the rare earths are concerned, which is, of course, China's newfound stranglehold over Americans' Achilles heel, because these are extremely complicated processes to produce, and some elements are essential, indispensable components in key products, including the military, F-35 fighters, for example. So I think that, again, China has agreed to not to give up this countermeasure entirely, but to relax its implementation for a year. So I think that's easier for China to accede in order to promote a more positive outcome in the meeting between President Xi and President Trump.
With that, I would like to thank Andrew K.P. Long for joining us and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to our next news. Bangladesh's interim president, Mohammad Yunus, has stoked a fresh controversy after he gifted a distorted map showing India's northeast region as a part of Bangladesh to the Pakistan's Joint Chiefs of Staff Committee chairperson, General Shahid Shamshad Mirza. The controversial map shows that Assam and other northeastern states of India is part of Bangladesh. The incident happened during the visit of Pakistan's General Shahid Shamshad Mirza to Dhaka over the weekend, where he met Yunus, aiming to better the ties between the two countries, which has been sour since the 1971 Liberation War. During the meeting, they discussed a wide range of issues concerning Bangladesh-Pakistan relations, including growing importance of bilateral trade, investment, and defense cooperation. Now, for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Sudhakarji. He's a senior geopolitical and strategic defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Sudhakarji, for joining us again. Good to see you. Major,
thank you, Ashima. Good evening.
Thank you. Good evening. Major General, now looking at this, why do you think Bangladesh is doing this or did this, in particular to this map, which showed a different map from what India was expecting or India expects? And why do you think it's moving towards Pakistan? What's the strategy behind Bangladesh's move?
Sumab, thank you, and must compliment you for an excellent question raised by you. To answer your question, let me take the mind of our viewers back to 5th August 2019. On 5th August 2019, many important things happened. One of the very important things was abrogation of Article 370 and 35 Alpha by the Indian Parliament. And that day, with the abrogation, the Reorganization Act of Jammu and Kashmir state into two union territories also was decided, and consequently a map was formalized. A map which showed the union territory of Jammu and Kashmir. This is one part. The other part was union territory of Ladakh. After this, on 9th of August 2019, the Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Qureshi, he A-dashed to China and he consulted many senior leaders on 9th, 10th and 11th, partly of 11th, and came back on 11th, back to, I think, to Pakistan. During these 1.5 to 2 days of stay with China, a counter strategy was formed or formulated mutually between Pakistan and China. And as an extension of this counter strategy, many things started unfolding gradually. First and foremost was the extended standoff consequent to Galwan incident, that is on 15th June 2020, in the backdrop of the pandemic. And the extended standoff, it was hoped at that point in time would last for not longer, but it continued even today. The extended standoff continues. Number two, the proxy war south of Pir Panjal ranges in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir, which was lying dormant for more than a decade, was revived with trans-border terrorists operating and being controlled by Pakistan military. With that revival, the troops who had been moved out to Northern Command actually created a void, and the proxy was slowly expanded, encircling the state of Jammu and Kashmir, and finally entering into the main valley, which had witnessed normalcy for more than 4 to 5 years, and economic development, wherein the national highway, railway connectivity, lots of training establishments, education centers of excellence, employment opportunities, air traffic started going up, the FDI from international many countries started flowing in. Likewise, a lot of improvement has started taking place, and China took Pakistan, with the help of China, took a pledge that they would do anything and everything, make sure that the elections for the state assembly and also parliamentary elections do not take place. Both the things were conducted smoothly and in a successful manner. The turnout of the people who came to exercise their franchise was much more beyond the expectations. This was followed by many other activities. One of the important activity was on 5th August 2024, Bangladesh witnessed Sheikh Hasina, the long-standing, very tall, towering personality, Prime Minister of Bangladesh for nearly 15 years. She was moved out. She was sent out from the country on exile, and the students' body and the Jamaati Islam, they took to the roots, and Yunus came here as an interim government head. And thereafter, the Jamaati, the ISIS has been coordinating lots of activities with the Rohingya militants, as also with ISIS, Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and Lashkar-e-Toiba, and Mujahideen inside Bangladesh to carry out many nefarious activities, principally, I would say, to enhance and expand the radicalization process in Bangladesh, and with an aim to expand further to India. In between, last year, 14th April 2025, in Dhaka University, a map of larger Bangladesh or bigger Bangladesh was displayed, wherein it was claimed that the bigger or the larger Bangladesh would include 3 provinces of India to have Jharkhand, Bihar, and Orissa, all the northeastern states of India, and Rakhine province of Myanmar. This was definitely a very alarming. However, it was diffused and dismissed as one of those very casual kind of an event. This is how actually it starts assuming and building up incrementally. So to me, if you ask me a question, that this is definitely very, very provocating, very serious thing, and Bangladesh has to be told in no uncertain terms by India, at all levels and by all means, that they should refrain from indulging in such a provocative act, lest India will be left with no option but to take very serious action. Also, in the backdrop, on 19th of June 2025, in Kunming, in the sideline of a major event, the Minister of External Affairs or the representative of the Foreign Relations Office of Bangladesh, Pakistan, under the leadership of China, had a meeting in the garb of economic collaboration. What else is left for Bangladesh and Pakistan when they are importing to the tune of 81 to 82% of military hardware and taking all assistance from China? Is there any meaning of an economic collaboration for a meeting like this? To me, it appears that it is a slow beginning of a military alliance between the 3 states. Therefore, I call it as a devil's triangle India has to be watchful of. Back to you, Asuma.
And Major General, building on that, how should India respond diplomatically to Bangladesh's this move, as you have extensively laid out all the provocations throughout the past 20, 30 years?
Excellent question. Anything related to security, Asoma, you would agree with me that it cannot be studied or analyzed in isolation. This doesn't give you a holistic picture. It has to be actually very comprehensive and must be analyzed in terms of short, medium, and long term. A timeline could be expanded and kept flexible from 2 to 5 years as short term, 5 to 10 years as medium term, and 10 years to 15, 20, 25, depending on the selection of theme. And when you do this, we have different issues which need to be addressed at global, at regional, and at the local level. When you talk about the global level, the help of like-minded countries have to be taken. United Nations has to be taken on board, and we need to consult and raise the issue of going against the rules-based norms of the international order. The rules-based norms are when a country of Bangladesh starts showing a map which is beyond the accepted boundary by the global organization, it must be brought to the attention. Plus, we should formalize a kind of a UN resolution to highlight and to bring it to the notice of the global bodies. That is one. Secondly, the global organization, be it G7 or G20, or you talk about the ASEAN, or you talk about the I2U2, the Quad, or AUKUS, any such organization at the global level must also be visited and interacted with. America per se have to be taken on board. Our evergreen friend Russia has to be taken on board about the whole issue. But the central point is China is the mainstay and the center of gravity in all these conspiracy and complications.
Thank you.
We need to engage with China meaningfully, substantially, and in a very cautious manner, time-bound manner. Besides resolving our border issue, we need to also address the points of concern of China as to why China is encouraging such kind of activities. Suffice to say that a major share of BRA investment has gone in, not only in Bangladesh, in adjoining countries such as Myanmar. So therefore, I would recommend that apart from these global agencies I have highlighted, I have also highlighted what needs to be done regionally. We also need to engage with Mr. Yunus and all relevant authorities and organizations available in order to not only diffuse, to eradicate and eliminate such kind of threats developing by the day.
Yes. Major General Sudakarji, thank you for sharing that. Please stay with us as we stay in this region now. Now, Southeast Asia's ASEAN bloc has decided not to send monitors to Myanmar's election in December. According to diplomatic resources, ASEAN has not reached consensus on sending observers under its own banner. However, member states are still free to send their observers on a bilateral basis. This decision represents a setback for the junta's efforts to gain international legitimacy. The junta's chief Min Aung Hlaing has represented the December 28 polls as a step towards reconciliation in the civil war that was triggered by his 2021 military coup. Meanwhile, ASEAN Chair Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has repeated calls for quote-unquote immediate ceasefire and highlighted the need for inclusive political dialogue before elections can be held. As per reports, the upcoming Myanmar elections will not include voting in large areas controlled by pro-democracy guerrillas and ethnic minority armies who are fighting the military regime. Additionally, Human Rights Watch has condemned the elections, and Amnesty International has accused the junta of using repression to silence the critics of the poll. Now, for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Sudakarji. Thank you very much, Major General Sudakarji, for staying with us. Now, looking at this, even in earlier discussion, you did mention Myanmar, but now looking at this, why is ASEAN not sending officials to monitor, and how does ASEAN's decision affect Myanmar's international legitimacy and the credibility of its upcoming elections?
Asoma, you have raised two very important subparts of the question, and I would start with the coup which replaced the democratic government of Myanmar in 2021 in the month of February. With the replacement of the governance being taken over by the military junta, there were a lot of violent activities and very repressive measures were undertaken. With the repressive measures undertaken by the military junta, the public could not have their aspirations, so democratic norms and the demands and the rights could not be fulfilled. So therefore, there was an agreement to bring this violence to an end or some kind of control. there was an agreement called as 5-point agreement between the ASEAN nations or as a bloc and the Myanmar junta. Myanmar junta was Senior General Min Aung Hlaing, and the agreement essentially included the 5 important issues. First was the immediate end of violence. Second was to have a dialogue among all parties. The third was appointment of a special envoy. And fourth one was humanitarian assistance by ASEAN countries should be allowed and must be facilitated to reach out to the affected victims. And the last was the special envoy should be allowed to visit to Myanmar to meet all parties. While on one hand, the Senior General Min Aung, he defied each of the points, and at the same time, he kept on overseeing the brutal nationwide crackdown aimed at suppressing millions of people opposed to the military rule. At the same time, the ASEAN kept on putting pressure on Myanmar to bring in some sense of orderliness. Now, while I have covered all this, behind the scene, what is happening is there is a huge strategic rivalry going on. Since you don't have time, allow me to touch only important milestones. Way back in 1988, there was a pro-democracy movement, and against which the complete Myanmar dispensation had come down very heavily, and there were large number of assassinations and extrajudicial killings, and people have been killed in point blank broad daylight.
Yes. So, Major General Surakarji, thank you for joining us, but unfortunately we're running out of time for that discussion. So now we move on. Thank you very much, as always, for joining and sharing that insight. Now we move on and we stay on this region. Speaking at a news conference on the sidelines of the ASEAN summit in Kuala Lumpur, United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his outrage over the dire situation in Myanmar. Let's listen in.
By the deplorable situation in Myanmar. The military takeover in 2021 has piled calamity upon calamity. Villages bombed or burned, thousands killed, millions displaced, regional stability at risk. A military attacking the civilians it's meant to protect. And now the spectre of elections within an active conflict. The atrocities and the cycle of impunity must end.
The UN Secretary General has further backed ASEAN's efforts and expressed support for the ASEAN 5-point consensus, which aims to restore democracy and human rights in Myanmar. Let's listen into what he has said in this regard.
I reiterate my call for an immediate end to the violence, a genuine commitment to inclusive dialogue, and a credible path back to civilian rule, starting with the swift release of all those arbitrarily detained. The United Nations fully supports the ASEAN 5-point consensus, and I welcome strengthened cooperation between my Special Envoy, Julie Bishop, with the ASEAN counterpart. And I applaud ASEAN's commitment to providing humanitarian assistance to the people of Myanmar. The way forward must lead to a restoration of democracy, institutions anchored in the rule of law and human rights.
Additionally, Guterres has shown strong concerns over the credibility of the upcoming junta elections in December, stating that they will not be free and fair and will not solve Myanmar's problems. He has also further urged a focus on increasing humanitarian assistance and paving a way for political solution that leads to civilian rule and constitutional government. Now we move on to Turkey. A Turkish court has issued a fresh arrest order for Istanbul's mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, on charges of political espionage. İmamoğlu, a leading rival to President Erdogan, has been in jail since March this year. He faces corruption charges. The latest allegations accuse him of using graft to fund his presidential ambitions and seeking international support through espionage. İmamoğlu denies the accusations, calling them lies and slander. Critics fear the charges are part of a broader effort to delegitimize the opposition and possibly pave the way for Istanbul's state-appointed governor to take control of the city. Imamoglu's party, the Republican People's Party, has been targeted by legal actions for over a year, with the government rejecting claims that the courts are politicized. Now for this discussion, we welcome Dr. Satoru Nagao. He's a fellow at Hudson Institute, joins us live from Tokyo. Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now looking at this, how could Imamoglu's imprisonment influence domestic and international perceptions of President Erdogan's administration?
In this case, when we check the career of the President Erdogan, we can find one similarity with this rival of him, Imamoglu, because President Erdogan was the mayor of Istanbul. So that's why this is the mayor of the capital, but indeed this is a role to be a more higher job in the near future. So that's why this, as one of the carriers, Erdogan is worrying about the influence of Imamoglu. And he is the leader of the opposition party, and the European countries, democratic countries support this party's policy. So that's why President Erdogan worrying. But at the same time, if the President Erdogan wins all of the election, that is not a concern. But such kind of rival do not have influence, he can say. But in the local elections, his party is losing in some case. So that's why he starts worry too. He spent for a long time as a president, so that's why his achievement is compared with achievement in the past. So people compare current Erdogan and Erdogan in the past, and so how much achievement he has done is based. Because if he was sworn in just after the opposition, something like that. In this case, the people can compare the opposition party and his achievement. In this case, he can show the fresh new achievement. But now he have stayed for a long time. This means that the people compare with his achievement now and his achievement in the past, and compare the past. He is not fresh, something like that. So that could happen if he stays for a long time. So that's why he is worrying the much. That is true. So when this issue has happened related to the corruption or espionage, it is not easy to prove. In this case, people can see this could be the political something.
Thank you very much, Dr. Satoru, for joining us and sharing that insight. Now we move on and we stay in the region. Afghanistan and Pakistan officials are all set to meet in Istanbul for a third day of talks after failing to clinch a lasting peace. The South Asian neighbors agreed to a ceasefire in Doha on October 19th after days of border clashes that has killed dozens. Reports suggest that two Pakistan security sources have accused the Afghan Taliban of not cooperating with the dialogue process. On Saturday, Pakistan's defense minister has said that he believed Pakistan wanted peace, but that failure to reach an agreement in the Istanbul talks would mean an open war. And that's a wrap on the NewsX Prime Time Asia. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.